They should all be in the package. We have a motion. Second. Any comments? Suggested changes? All right. Do all approve? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. They are approved unanimously. All right. We'd like to introduce the new members of the commission. And I'd like everybody to stand up, if you would. Suzanne Trollin. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you while we're doing it, we're going to do this kind of one touch. Let's get it done here. So we need to appoint them to a committee. And Suzanne will be Riverwalk Committee. Thank you. Kay Schumacher. Thank you, Kay. Yeah. Kay, we'd like to appoint you to the Streetscapes and Gateway Committee. Okay. Jason Yates. Secondary Jason, we'd like to put you on the Streetscapes and Gateways Committee. Cliff Moon.
I'm over here.
Streetscapes and Gateways. And by the way, I'm on that committee too, so I welcome y'all to help us with that one. Ernie Seals on the City Walk. Thank you, Ernie. And then Ralph Griffith, Streetscapes and Gateways Committee. And Michaela Simmons on the Riverwalk Committee. Thank y'all for joining us, and we got a lot of work to carry forward here. All right, so the appointments to the subcommittee we talked about, and then as everybody knows, Charlie Dixon is still recovering from his health event, and I have like to appoint now Alan Barnhart to be the interim chair of the Riverwalk subcommittee, and he's agreed to do that. Alan's going to be a few minutes late, but he said he is showing up. And Mike Bell will still be the vice chair. So we have talked about it, and they're going to work together. And let's continue to hope that Charlie Dixon has a speedy recovery. And were there any other things? Okay. So let's turn the bond program over to Andrea.
Thank you, Wyatt. So good evening. How's everyone?
Good.
All right. It's exciting. I would say this is phase 2. We're headed deep into this phase. We've got a lot of work going on that has happened over the last 2 months. We got a slight reprieve after all your hard work over Christmas and Thanksgiving and really the middle of January. So we've got a sort of a community effort at a PowerPoint to catch you up on all the details. But how is the view? Can you see that PowerPoint well enough? You might just need to shift a little bit. How about hearing me? I'm going to yell. Is everybody good? Okay, just let me know. All right. All right. You may need an advanced slide person. Or I'll just leave it here. Okay. It's not working. So I wanted to share with you what happened since January 13th. So you had your bond commission meeting. You came up with combined option A's, your consensus program. And from there, City Council took it through a public hearing process. It was unanimously approved to move forward. And so next step was that City Council had a workshop in February, and those discussions included bond projects in this program as well as a lot of non-bond projects. So we want to make sure you know what we know about all the activities going on. So for the City Walk, the RFQ will go out on the street tomorrow. So the RFQ is the request for qualifications. This is the document that we have to prepare to ask consultants to give us their qualifications based on a specific project description. And there's a lot of state statutes involved with writing this document. So the Freeze Nickel staff worked with us on this over the last 2 weeks, and we have that ready to go. So you might recall that process includes, design firms go on our city website, they register, they get notice of the that it's time to submit their qualifications if they're interested to do the design work for City Walk, and that'll go out on the street tomorrow, which means that the City Walk subcommittee is really going to start first, but the rest of you are right behind in your projects, or you can also, be involved at the City Walk level. So it'll take a few months to get to the point where a designer has been selected and a contract is awarded. We give groups a 4-week window to respond to this RFQ, and this is really, it could be local firms, it could be national firms. It's open to all. And then the group we'll get a number of applications. We'll then go through a selection process where we pare the list down. We will end up with 3, 4, 2, we're not sure, but a number of final firms that make the final cut, and then we'll be involved with the City Walk group in a process where you would sit in on those interviews for the firms and help us, give us feedback that we can then prepare our staff recommendation to City Council for which firm we think we should go with. So there will be some criteria, and all of that is all that's being developed right now. But you can anticipate that between now and July, probably sometime in late May, we will have the process for interviews, and then we go with the selected one. We negotiate a contract, and then we take that contract to City Council, which is what happens in July. City Council then approves it. Then we're ready to start design on City Walk. And that process, and you remember that flow chart that has all, I could get it out again, but it's too small to read. It has all the dates. So the design for City Walk will take a number of months, but it'll get started, and then as we go through, there's a 30% design, 60, and 90% design, and you'll be involved in getting updates about that, having feedback as to the details of City Walk, just all of the above. It's exciting. The next one is 321 Gateway. That happens just next month in May. We'll do an RFQ for that gateway, or those 2 gateways. Those are at Clement and at 2nd Avenue. And so that'll be the process for the Streetscape and Gateway Subcommittee to go through. There'll be another round of interviews, another set of firms that submit their qualifications, selection, award of the contract, and then Riverwalk starts in July, and that one's a significant one too, the same type of process, an RFQ for design, paring down the list, interviews and selection, and a contract awarded by October. So really, each subcommittee will have work going on over the summer, and everybody will be in some stage of input by the time we get to October. Then it keeps going, because you remember there are a few more projects. So just looking out to 2017, even out as far as 2019, you can see the list there. And we'll send you this PowerPoint in a follow-up email, so you don't have to write all this down if you are. So LR and I-40 Gateway happens, that design process happens in 2017. Remember, we're trying to hold out and let DOT do their Cloverleaf work. Then LR Boulevard comes shortly thereafter for a design. Riverwalk and City Walk, that's the connection points. Those are the smaller streetscapes here and here. And then the P3 is the public-private partnership. That'll happen sort of further out, almost into 2019 for design. And so we wanted to share with the council the amount of work we've been doing. So this slide came from their presentation. 26 meetings that you had last year. And so a number that we just wanted to know that there's a lot of input and a lot of work that went into that. We did 6 full bond commission meetings last year. We're trying to keep those quarterly. So this is the first one, the second one technically, because we had the January meeting, but we're trying to do 4 a year. But you realize that, and we're sharing with the new group, that it really has to be more than that to get into the details. So we will have a number of meetings this year as well. The ones that are mandatory, if you want to be counted present for your attendance, are these quarterly meetings. So if you can't make a subcommittee meeting, that's okay. Just come as you can. And so going forward, this is generally what you can expect. That you'll have, the full bond commission review each of the plans and schedule those next steps. We'll have the subcommittees go into the design process selecting the designer. That may take 2 to 4 meetings as we meet to talk about what to look for, have the meetings with as the interviews, and then follow up. And then a pre-design meeting. So each project will have sort of a kickoff meeting. Here's City Walk. Well, the designer that we choose will then meet with us and hear from you and from staff about the expectations that we have, what we've thought through already, and what we don't know the condition of. So that'll happen, and then design development happens over a couple of meetings through the end of the year. They will be developing the construction documents that go through a permit process, a review process, through the city, through the state, all those federal agencies we talked about, and the county, and then that'll take a few iterations. So all of that's happening before we can take plans out for bid for construction. So then we'll have another process, because we're required by state law to bid out our construction over a certain amount. And so the construction process will be a bid process too, where we say, here are the set of plans, XYZ firm, submit your bid. We usually go with the lowest responsible bidder, and that's a process spelled out in the statutes as well. Those dollars, or those contracts get awarded for the construction by City Council, and then with the construction plans in hand and the bids in hand and the contracts with the bids in hand, we can go to the local government commission and say we're ready to draw down the funds, sell the bonds, and access the dollars from the bond. So it really, and we'll have to do that a couple of different ways. I think that's the next. Yeah, so 2 bond issues are what we anticipate. So the first issue we think will be 2 years from now, because we really do need to have enough projects bid out to then go and access those dollars. And so spring of 2018, and then that needs to coincide with the tax increase that the voters said they were willing to pay. So there's the schedule for that. The first one, roughly 4 or 5 cents in July 2018, to coincide with that first bond drawdown, and then the second issue for 2020, and the second 3 or 4 cents as we go. So we need to have it costs money to go through this process, and so we need to do this in chunks, and so this is the anticipated schedule. Non-bond related projects. So we don't want you to think that you got to wait 2 more years before you see anything built, because there's a lot happening and it's busy. So I'm going to turn it over to Mac, and he's got, I don't know, 4 or 5 projects to cover, and then you'll hear from Brian and Chuck, and then we'll get back together for some more discussion. Thanks.
Good afternoon. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm Mac McLeod, Parks and Recreation Director for the city. We felt it was important, even though we're talking about the bond project, we felt it was important to let you know what's going on currently in the city as it relates to several non-bond projects. And the first one we'll talk about, I know everybody's familiar with the Lackey project and what the Robert Lackey family is planning to do with the major improvements and renovations of Rotary Garden Park. And it really also ties in with the bond, because it also connects with the Riverwalk. And as you see there, I'm not going to read all that, but just today, city staff, along with the Lackey family, we were in about a half-a-day meeting today, starting the plans to put in. There'll be a conservancy board put together that will actually operate the park itself, and We've also had discussions today with TSW, who are the landscape architects for the Lackey portion of the project. The city, we've also retained them to help us go through the process of what the responsibilities of the city will be on that design process. So we're excited about this. The next one, and really the thing that I want to leave with you on most of the projects that I'm showing you are public, are partnerships. You know, it's not totally city Hickory dollars in these projects. The Kiwanis Park splash pad, take you back to 2011, 2012 time frame. The city partnered with the Kiwanis clubs to fund and develop the Zara Baker All Children's Playground at Kiwanis Park. Once that was completed, partnered once again with the Kiwanis clubs to develop an accessible tree house that is at the park. We were talking earlier today, even though it's known as, it's Kiwanis Park, everybody, when they call our office, well, can you tell us, I'm talking about Zara Baker Park? And that's great. It's become a destination for. But once again, for the third time, the city, we partner with the local Kiwanis clubs and have entered into an agreement to develop a splash pad at Kiwanis Park. Currently, if you go to Kiwanis Park, you can see that work underway. The Kiwanis clubs, both Kiwanis clubs, and there are two here in Hickory, have pledged $100,000 toward this project. Just wanted to give you a conceptual view of what these are the actual features for the splash pad at Kiwanis Park. Just another shot. We've designed the splash pad, and it's just a playground. It's a water playground, is what it is. And it's been designed to where young kids, toddlers, teens, and even adults can go out and play together. A lot of we're excited about what's now known as Bruce Meisner Park, on the Clonger Mill Park, city property. That's at the intersection of Highway 127 and Clonger Mill Road. As you can see, that original master plan we had for a 63-acre park back in March of last year, North Carolina Outward Bound came to the city and offered a donation of $900,000 to take what at that time was designated as a 10-acre commercial site, put it back into the park. So we updated that master plan back, used through the Parks and Recreation Commission, updated that master plan to now where it is now a 73-acre park. You can see those total costs there. That $900,000 is designated for park development. Our plans right now, next fiscal year, start the project design work on this park. As you know, City Council also, through a recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Commission, has formally named this park now forever known as Bruce Meisner Park. Here's a layout of the park just to get you oriented. Highway 127, Clonger Mill Road. Unique feature, if you've never been on this property, unique feature about this is a natural waterfall right down here. You go down there and you have no idea you're still within the city limits of Hickory. So we're really excited about bringing this park on board. Another public-private partnership we have underway is with the Greater Hickory Tennis Association. Our major tennis complex is the Hickory City Park, which it abuts up to Gardner Rotary Park, and you'll see the tie-in we've got also with what's going on with the Lackey project, Riverwalk. But we entered into a 10-year priority use agreement to do some major park improvements at Hickory City Park. Basically a new picnic shelter, a restroom, meeting room facility, The Great Hickory Tennis Association has pledged $125,000 toward this project. It's currently in the design stages. Right now, we currently have 20 parking spaces there. So we felt we wanted, one of the things we needed to do due to the growth of tennis here and use of the bikeway, we really needed to expand that parking. So we originally got it up from 20 to 75 spaces. When we started talking about the Riverwalk Connection Lackey project, we wanted to make sure we had enough parking, to not only handle this part, but also what was coming online. So this is now the conceptual plan that we're currently in engineering design stage. This is, if you're familiar with the park, this is the existing picnic shuttle restroom facility here. This is the existing parking area, 20 parking spaces. We're proposing to move the new facility down here adjacent to the tennis courts, and then build a 122 space parking lot here. If you go to Winkler Park and LP Frame Stadium, it has tiered parking, it'll be the same concept. So this is a great partnership with the Tennis Association. The final project is one that's currently underway. I see Ed over there smiling. Ed is president of the Green Park Neighborhood Association. We work hand in hand with him. We've done some major improvements to Hickory Park. The reason why we want to show you this, this park is only a block away from the future City Walk. So it's important, there's a natural connection. This is really a neighborhood park. It's been underutilized, not much investment. So we came in back in 2014-15. We had a major storm drainage pipe fell on us, so gave us an opportunity to come in and replace that pipe, redesign the park entrance there off 2nd Avenue Southwest. One of the requests that was in, matter of fact, in the Green Park Neighborhood Association plan it, I think it's been there since late 90s, was a paved walking trail. So we were able to add a 0.2 mile paved walking trail. One of the new features that's coming out in the Parks and Recreation world are outdoor fitness zones, which is just outdoor fitness equipment. So we were able to install an outdoor fitness zone at this park, which is adjacent to the existing playground there. And so hopefully we'll be able to add this feature in future parks. So that was phase one. We also have a phase 2 projects going on. We have there was a storage building, restroom facility been there since the late 1950s. So we've demolished that building. We're building, constructing a new restrooms. The new buildings have community rooms, catering, kitchen, restrooms that'll be able to access, also be used by anyone reserving the building, but also access park patrons. We have a picnic shelter, a tennis court there that's really totally underutilized. We're converting that, taking that one single tennis court and converting it into 4 pickleball courts. By show of hands, how many people know what pickleball is? Wow. Well, I tell you, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the United States right now. We have 4 pickleball courts out here on our basketball courts. Pickleball is a combination of tennis, badminton, and ping pong. And it is the fastest growing sport. Okay, you come out here 3 days a week in the morning, we have all 4 courts going. So what we're doing, we're taking a totally underutilized tennis court and converting it to 4 pickleball courts. So we just see the use of this park increasing once we complete this park. This park is totally being developed and renovated using federal money, using community development block grant monies. This park has totally done that. So those are several projects that we've got going on. I want to show you from the non-bond project. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions anybody has before I turn it over to my illustrious esteemed colleague, planning director. was trying to vote her, but I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll call on the line. You'll do a great job.
I only have one slide. I'm Brian Frazier, the city's Planning and Development Services Director. I'm glad that my friend Matt said distinguished instead of extinguished. We were talking about his retirement earlier today in the meeting. Basically, what we're looking at is the streetscape and zoning overlay. And the streetscape is what we're looking at. We were looking at 9. And now what we're looking at is 5. We've modified the proposal. We sent out an RFQ, request for qualifications, back in January. 5 consultants responded with their RFQ statements in February. We've narrowed the searches to 3. They're all North Carolina-based firms, which is something we were trying to do. And basically, the areas that we're looking at are segments 9A and 9B, which are the connectors, the short connectors between the western edge of City Walk and the southwesterly edge of the Riverwalk. Those 2 small connectors, we're going to do those. We're going to do Old Lenore, we're going to do Lenore Boulevard and Old Lenore Road. And one new one that we're looking at doing is we've redefined City Walk as also being a streetscape, because there's ample opportunity for new development and redevelopment and a lot of infill properties along that way. So we're looking at streetscape there too. In terms of streetscape, we're looking at access design, we're looking at lighting, we're looking at curbing, sidewalks, infrastructure to some extent, signage, lighting, landscaping, and building architectural, those design features of the buildings, the doorways, the windows, parking access, how pedestrians get safely from their vehicles to the building. We have many design standards now, but we're just looking at beefing those up and enhancing those, and specifically in the areas where the city's putting the money in, the $40 million bond initiative. So that's what we're looking at. We should be making a decision, I would think, by the end of this week, early next week, on that consultant and bring them in and start doing that design work on those 5 streetscape areas. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, there's not much more than that. Everything's pretty much there as outlined. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have before I turn it over to Mr. Hanson. That was easy.
Okay, this one actually is not a city project. Y'all heard the Friends Hickory Park downtown. Private groups raising the funds. I think they've just about met the goal to pull the trigger to start doing something, what we're hearing. You could probably look for a groundbreaking announcement before too long. I think the plans are about to hit our doors for the permits that need to be pulled. So again, I think you're looking late May, June timeframe to see some stuff actually happening in that park. This give you some, may not know what it is. This is the Community One Bank building downtown, essentially. Main Avenue Northwest, railroad tracks. This is a little alleyway that'll actually get closed about as far back as the building, so that sort of gets pulled into the park to make that parking lot that it is today a little larger. So as we go on, you'll hear some updates. There's an artist that'll be working on this little bit of a mosaic of the Catawba River. A little bit of a water feature, not the splash pad that Matt talked about, for example, but again, this will have some water tied with the project. And again, big place here and so forth in there. So that's one that I'm going to talk about in another piece of my presentation here in just a minute. There's a project we have going on that relates to this a little bit. This is one that maybe y'all hit the Sandy Ridge Road, 29th Avenue intersection out here at starting about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon to about 6. You know, that's probably our most congested intersection really around town for work traffic hours. We applied to and received basically a grant up here, about $3.7 million, congestion mitigation air quality. There's a match with that, 20%, so little over $900,000 that the city's putting into it. But again, the goal is leverage some other funds to help ourselves here, even though both of these are DOT roadways. They're not even on their horizon in the near decade to be addressed. So we're trying to tackle that a little bit more local, if you will. What we have is about 95% design. To give you some orientation, this is Lowe's Foods, the credit union, 29th Avenue, Sandy Ridge Road. This is 21st Avenue back towards Hampton Heights Golf Course. You'll see essentially where the 4-lane ends, right out here north of us. It'll actually come into a single lane roundabout. As you progress on out to 29th Avenue, this is actually a dual lane roundabout. It'll function as a 1 lane, but looking forward as traffic grows a little bit, it really needs to go ahead and be put in as a dual lane. So again, this is one that we're designing in-house. We'll oversee the construction of it. So, but the key here is we basically picked up about 80% of the money to tackle this project with. Time frame on that, again, we're a year out before you really see. We're hoping this summer to really start acquiring right away associated with that. There's a lot of Department of Transportation checkoffs that's got to happen because the money comes from the feds to the state, DOT to us. So there's a lot of steps you have to roll through. This project, downtown utility project, again, $3.1 million. We picked up a little over about half of that as a low interest, 1.7%, 75% interest loan through the state. So again, trying to get smart money where we can, if you will. This project, some of you may have heard about a little bit now, but this is basically working downtown. And to get you oriented, think of the red as a box. And what we're doing is working within that red box. This is Union Square itself, the brickwork, Trade Alley, First Avenue, Second Avenue. Again, here's the Friends of Hickory Park, right here in this corner. So this is 3rd Street Northwest and 2nd Street Northwest. The last water pipe we cut into down there in the last 6 months had a date stamp of 1904. So I guess you could say on Kevin Greer back there, his watch and my watch, we get to have the fun of changing all that 110-year-old stuff out. One of the first pieces we'll start, there's actually a little loop here that we'll do that relates to the Friends of Hickory Park. Comes up. The second piece we'll do is Trade Alley. And all those little blue dots, you can think of those as water meters. So we're going to have to dig a hole related to every one of those water meters. That has to happen. While we're in Trade Alley, again, this is more than just a water project. This is also a sewer line replacement project. It's also a storm drainage upgrade project. So we're really hitting those 3 main utilities. The other thing that'll happen, we've talked to, one of the challenges here for some of these businesses are they have pretty low cable speed in there for computers. We're going to install some conduits that'll help that part of the industry, if you will. And also those gas lines need to be changed out while we're in there. So Trade Alley really gets disrupted. Again, it'll sort of be worked half and half. Got to deal with businesses keeping their deliveries in. Got to deal with people actually having service. So, but that will actually get totally put back together as some crosswalks at the appropriate ends and in the middle, and then repaving of it in the process. The rest of these, 3rd, 1st, 2nd Street, those you'll see more of what you think of as a trench, a ditch in the road, and working off of that. But again, there's a ditch for water, there's a ditch for sewer, and then you'll have to come back and make the appropriate taps that you got to make. So that's a challenging project in and of itself. If this was out on a country road somewhere, no more line work than that. It's just a couple of months worth of work. This one's several months worth of work by the time you go make those connections, keep people in service, and get things tied back. The follow-up of that is we'll be looking at, okay, do we want to do some improvements at some intersections downtown? Think of bulb outs, some landscaping. So these will go back as street patches. Trade Alley will get sort of put back together as a full, complete end product. These will go back as street patches with the resurfacing of that, the resurfacing to follow, you know, as a second phase of that project. Another one we're working on, you've heard us talk about gateway or wayfinding. This project started
8 years ago.
8 years ago, and we sort of shelved it based on the economy, if you will. But since then, we've rebranded ourselves a little bit and changed our logo and some other things. So we basically went back and dusted that one off and updated it for where we're at today. We worked through a little bit of a committee 8 years ago to say, okay, what are our destination points that we want to sign the public to, and especially somebody coming into town. Downtown, Salt Block, Viewmont, you know, typical things you could rattle off real quick. So this project from a wayfinding probably adds about 100 signs around town. And you've seen wayfinding in some other locations. Again, depending on where you're at, the size sign that goes, but this is the theme of what you'll see. That one, basically, next week I have a meeting with the Department of Transportation where quite a few of these signs go are actually on DOT roadways. So we got to get their check off on it. We'll have a meeting with them to hopefully get the final blessing on that. And so again, May, June advertising bids, midsummer, late summer construction on these. So this will take a few months to go, because again, you got to fab signs, do the locate clears, dig the holes, pour the foundations, put them in place. A second part of this project that we're looking at doing also is sort of updating some of the signage on Interstate 40. Think of the signs you see maybe coming into Lenora Boulevard. What does that say? We've changed the names on a few of those facilities over the last 15 years. So we'll sort of dress those up and replace that signage. That's part of this, but it's really a second phase. Hopefully we can get it within the funding that we have earmarked for this.
Hey Chuck,
Yep.
you're gonna change the street names too, right?
No.
Are
I knew somebody was going to ask that question.
Chuck, the base to those signs, are they very much like the ones down by Highland from Lenore Ryan?
LR Boulevard?
Yeah, LR Boulevard.
Your question is this, sort of the clamshell base and so forth?
Uh-huh.
The answer is yes. This is actually matching up with the standards that we've had worked up. That sort of, we've been working on another sister project, if you will, that said, okay, here's some design standards that when folks start designing these bond projects, here's the look and feel that we want to go in public space. That's what this base is, the clamshell base. That, you know, it's to deal with the DOT and safety factors even for our roadways. There's a breakable base underneath that. If you hit it with a car, it's made to fall over. So there's a lot that thing hides that you don't see. All right. Thanks.
So we wanted you to have the full picture. That's a lot of work. So I guess one is be patient when you see these construction sites over the next 2 years, because you imagine all the things that will be torn up to make them better. Number two, it's just tell your friends and neighbors, this is all happening. This all in addition to what you've done. So it's pretty amazing to leverage all these funds and get things going. All right, so I got so excited to talk about the RFQ process. I've already done that, so we can move on to beyond number 7. Does anybody have questions though before we do that about the RFQ? City Walk coming first. We can do that quickly, but I'm happy to talk about it more. Anybody pretty good with that? All right, so if you have a design firm friend, just send them to the city website. They would normally have people in their firm that know that's the drill. So that's how we do that. What comes next, though, is sort of your role and responsibility as bond commissioner and any conflicts of interest that we might uncover, or that you have, or that you realize you have, and how we can handle that effectively. So I'm going to ask Arnita to come up. Arnita's our deputy city attorney, and we thank her for her time. And we've got to be very deliberate about how we interact, especially as we're heading into this legal process with RFQs and design. So, Arnita?
Yes, now we get to the sexy part of all of this. I was telling them back there, by the time I finish, you may be yelling, or reaching for your pitchforks and torches and yelling, kill the monster. But I promise you, this is not my doing. So, what Andrea brought up is very important and critical. And so today I'm here to share some information with you regarding conflicts of interest as related to council's policies and guidelines that govern boards and commissions. There's not really, I don't think, a significant amount of time here this evening to talk about individual scenarios or situations, but I'm available. I have my business cards here, so if you have questions afterwards and would like to have a conversation with me, I'm certainly glad to speak with you. And please feel free to take a business card. In reviewing conflicts of interest, the city attorney, John Crone, and I, and our city manager met, and we've looked at various policies and documents, including council's code of ethics, which incorporates their conflict of interest policy, and also the handbook for members of advisory boards and commissions, which, by the way, if you do not have a copy, we can certainly get that to you. It is wonderful reading, just mind-boggling reading. And relevant state statutes, and again, consultation with the city attorney, with John Crone, and also consultation with UNC School of Government faculty who deal with these issues on a regular basis. So we looked at just some general things. First of all, the conflict of interest policy, meaning council's policy, doesn't apply to you directly because it stipulates it applies to the mayor, city council members, city manager, assistant city managers, the city attorney, and department heads. So you're like, wow, I'm in the clear, it doesn't apply to me. But guess what? There are other documents, including this wonderful document that I just referenced. This lovely thing that says Handbook for Members of Advisory Boards and Commissions, which applies directly to you. Also, there are relevant state statutes, North Carolina state statutes, governing conflicts of interest. The handbook draws from council's policy, and it also draws from state statutes. And it addresses conflicts of interest for public employees. And I know you're saying, well, I'm not a public employee, but guess what? Under the definition in the handbook, you are. It specifically states that a public employee is any person holding a position by appointment or employment in the service of the municipality, whether paid or unpaid, including members of any board, committee, or commission thereof. So guess what? You're a public employee under that definition. The handbook specifically prohibits board and commission members from participating in voting on matters in which the member would have a conflict of interest. And it goes further to say that the member has to actually recuse himself or herself and not even participate in any discussion related to that matter in which the person will be either affirmatively or adversely impacted, your person or property which you have an interest. There are also relevant state statutes, and these are in, guess what, the criminal chapter, 14-234 and 14-234.1. So by a violation of these statutes, it's not just, oh, that's too bad, but it is potentially a commission of a misdemeanor. Now, I'm going to give just some examples, and as I said, these examples probably will not cover all situations, but just to give you some sort of idea. As you've heard today, the RFQ is going to be put out, and firms will want to submit proposals. A bond commission member who, for example, is an employee of a firm and doesn't have more than 10% ownership interest in the firm or derive any income or commission directly from the contract or acquires property of the contract wouldn't have a conflict under the statute, General Statute 14-234. And again, it's like a sigh of relief. Yay, my firm can bid or submit a proposal. I'm an employee of a firm that wants to submit. However, going back to the handbook, that member would be prohibited from participating in a discussion of and a vote on that matter. So clear on one end, but again, we have to reference the handbook, which of course has been adopted by council many, many years ago. So that member would be conflicted out and could participate not only not in the meetings, but the handbook goes as far as to say that the member cannot even comment on or make a statements in favor of or against the proposal at the meeting or even outside the meeting, or direct someone else to do it. So it's really a stringent standard. And I guess I should have prefaced this by saying, of course we want transparency, we want the projects to have a positive meaning, and we wouldn't want our the bond projects to be tainted in any way by any kind of cloud. So these rules apply to your commission as well. What could a violation of the rules mean? Malfeasance of office charges, charges of improper influence or action, or public discontent with the local government. So our council's predecessors were really took these matters very seriously, as we do now, and hope you will. What if you have ownership interest in a firm? Again, referring to firms that may want to bid. If you have 10% or more interest in a firm, or if you derive a direct benefit from the contract or acquire property, you would have a conflict of interest. And recusal doesn't cure that kind of conflict of interest, because the benefit, the money that would be paid under that contract would flow directly to your firm. And that cannot be cured by recusing yourself from that matter. Finally, another issue that is going to probably come up is that many of you in here own property throughout the city. You know, what does the handbook say, and what do the statutes say about that? Now, if you already own property that lies along a project's potential route, you don't necessarily have a conflict under the statute, but under the handbook, the conflict of interest provisions in the handbook, that person would need to recuse himself or herself from participation or voting on that matter, that particular project. And it's not just a positive impact, but it can also be a negative impact on your property or yourself. You would have to recuse yourself from participating in that matter. Another one is, well, I know where the projects are going, and I think I'm going to buy some property along that route. It's a good investment. According to General Statute 14-234.1, can engage in self-dealing. If you're basing that decision on information that has not been made available to the public, and again, I'll say that, if the information has not been made available to the public, and you go out and use that information to acquire property or to invest in property that may be impacted by one of these projects, you potentially have violated 14-234.1, which again is a criminal violation. It's a misdemeanor. It's self-dealing, and that is strictly prohibited. So those are some of the scenarios. Again, I can't address every one, but to sum it up, the handbook, again, if you haven't received a copy of that, we can get one to you. The handbook does apply, and the conflict of interest principles there apply. The statutes apply for you as well. And if you have a question or a concern about your interests or your involvement, if you aren't certain, that's what we're here for, is to help you through that. Again, I'm available if you have questions. Business cards here. And I know that was the quick and dirty. It is a complicated area. And it's not the, I said, here we come to the sexy part. It's not the most sexy thing involved, but I firmly believe that each and every one of you who are serving on the bond commission want to do what's right and what's best, not only for yourselves, but for the citizens of our city. Thank you.
So I'll just add one piece to that, and that is, you might think, well, why did council appoint Ed? Let's pick on Ed tonight. So why did council appoint Ed? Well, council appointed Ed because he was highly qualified, motivated city, community leader, on and on and on. They didn't anticipate what projects would be selected. I mean, there was a whole process to get to where we are today. So you're hearing about the conflict of interest in part because now we know what we know, which is here are the projects, here's physically of where on the ground they're going to occur, and the relationships that you bring from your employment or from your property owner perspective are something that now matter, and we need to deal with that. So it's not really something where we feel regretful. We just know we've gotten to that point. So I hope you'll just work with us on that.
And I'm not sending you any more emails.
You're not. I picked on you because I think you'd be okay with it. Thank you. All right, so a few more items. If you feel like you're being just talked to tonight, I'm sorry. This is just one of those where we've got to get through a lot of important updating so we can get to the business of involving you in the next steps. But here's and I don't have anything overhead, but what I'd like you to do is go to your packet, and there is a resolution for the Tiger Grant, and also a sample letter. Okay, so we'll start with the letter. So you're going to, you got this in your email from me last week, and it is this. We've gone through this drill once before. We have the sample template. You can coordinate with our staff and send us back. Just yes, please write this letter on behalf of me or on behalf of my company or however you want to frame it. We're happy to prepare these letters, or if you want to put it on your letterhead from your place of employment, we just want to go ahead and include as many as we can in the application. And we have well over 20 letters back so far from a number of groups, and so we've gotten really good response. So anything we get from you is great. There's also the next step for the Tiger Grant, which is the emails, the phone calls, and that phase, but we're not at that point yet. So let me start over and say that we are applying for the 2016 round of the Tiger Grant. And our application is due on or before April 29th, so 10 days from now. And then we are submitting the City Walk and some slightly modified additional projects. And I'll go over those with you in just a moment. But the process is still the same. The dollar amounts are slightly less. The threshold is less. It used to be it had to be a $10 million project minimum. Now it's $5 million. So the stakes are high. It's a national competition, and we feel like we're making our application stronger. Here's how we're doing that. So now go to the resolution, and on the front page, you'll see a set of bullets. And so these are the aspects of the grant that we are highlighting this time. Last year, the grant was for the entire portion of City Walk, the entire leg of it, including all the amenities, and really that was it. And one of the pieces of feedback that we heard was you needed greater quality of life information, so quantifying quality of life. That's one piece of information we heard. We also heard we needed we have good safety numbers or, reasons for improving safety because of fatalities or injuries. We had good numbers there, we needed better numbers. We've also heard that we needed greater access to low to moderate income areas, to medical and cultural and educational facilities, and we're able to accomplish that with this particular structure. So City Walk Greenway is the yellow segment, and it's the $11.2 million one. So this is fine, so you're following along with me. We are adding what's called the ribs. So remember that discussion. The ribs are a segment that comes out of the Inspiring Spaces Plan. It takes you from Ridgeview Library north up First Avenue or Center Street, First Street or Center Street, to the City Walk, and then north to to Catherine Beaver Library in the Salt Block. So we're calling that the ribs. We had some less formal conversation at the Bond Commission last fall about it, but what this does is if we can put the ribs in our grant application, we would be asking for design monies and construction monies for that. So that's why you see that $3.5 million estimate. And we are saying that we realize it's not a part of the bond program as it was adopted back in January, but this piece makes our application strong. It gives us access to all the things I just mentioned. It's a really important way to strengthen that program. So that's why it's in there. If we don't get the Tiger grant, then that project, the RIBS portion, is not scheduled in the RFQ for City Walk right now, because we would have needed to come back to your group and said that was a modification. We did not do that. Okay, pedestrian bridge, that's also in here. The depot station parking deck, 2nd Avenue realignments, the traffic circle, I call that Mondrell. Lenore Ryan Boulevard streetscape. So the streetscapes, the addition of the streetscapes is also a big key change, because we, unfortunately or fortunately, we can use that crash data that we have for the Lenore Ryan streetscape in particular. There's a lot of pedestrian casualties in that area. It's got poor pedestrian signalization, and that makes our application stronger. So we added the streetscape for Elon Boulevard. We also added 9th Street and Main Avenue connector, which are the little segments on the other end, or that same type of additional data. That all totals $25.4 million. So the map at the bottom really just summarizes that we are asking for $25.4 million grant, of which we are providing a 25% match, $6.3 million from the Hickory portion of the money. But we know that we're already getting the STIP grant from the state. And so DOT has told us, well, you're not going to be able to get that money in addition to. What would likely happen is if we got Tiger grant, they would just go ahead and pull that money and move it up on the schedule. So we get it, but we don't get it. They get to count it as DOT at the federal level gets to count it as part of their award to us, and it draws upward from the state. Does that make sense? I probably didn't do a great job with that, but that's really it. But then really the last piece is that we have to provide a local match for that STIP. So we're saying that's our portion too. And so we feel like we have a strong application to say we're asking for this amount, but we already have state funding here, we have a local match, and it's not really as much new money from the federal government as other applications might be, or even as our last year's application was, because we didn't have the STIP at that point. All right, so tonight, and I think through the chairman, he will ask you for your recommendation of support. This is going to City Council at 7, and hopefully, nothing like time.
Like a little pressure. Anyhow, sounds like we got smarter, did our work, and hopefully we'll get a little better attention in Washington. So, can we have a motion? This motion to recommend this to the City Council, right? Okay. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you.
All right.
Very much.
Anything else from staff's perspective?
No, I can turn it back to you.
Okay, so I just remind everybody, for those who have not checked your form back there that you were present, please do so we can get it in minutes right for next time. And I believe that's it. We're adjourned.